America, a lot to report today. You have been told by the media and politicians alike that this theory is wrong, that there's nothing to it, pay no attention. Well, that was the storyline that was churned out and rehashed by pundit after pundit and reporter after reporter for God knows how long. But as we watch the Middle East and now the rest of the world catch fire, and we watch the events of the day play out, well, it has to become more and more clear who's correct and who is incorrect. And so then the question would become, well, wait a minute, why hasn't the incorrect side rushed? You know, all those who rush to dismiss or discredit the viewpoint come out now and rush out and say, whoa, 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 wow, it is really happening. What would stop them from reporting what is now the undeniable documented truth? This is important because you will see by the end of the show that there is another agenda, another possible explanation. I think the likely explanation here is those with real power need you to need them. And to need them, you have to be uninformed, unprepared, and afraid. Because the top can't come down unless the bottom demands it. And they will only demand it if people are uninformed, unprepared, and afraid. Watch tomorrow's program as we delve into this a little bit with some things that you won't believe that people haven't reported on. Everything becomes so much clearer when you read. Well, they need to silence anybody who could possibly explain the truth of what's really going on. So tonight I want to explain the truth. And I want to start with a little bit on what's happening in the Middle East. The uprisings in Egypt and Tunisia. We told you on January 31st, watch Tunisia, that the massive unrest that we alerted you on could be the Archduke Ferdinand moment. Now, that was the trigger of World War I. Nobody understood that at the time, and nobody understood on January 31st that history was about to repeat itself. I believe it has. I told you on the 31st of January that this might be the trigger for another great war. But unless you were watching and really listening with open eyes and ears, you weren't getting that information. And if you were watching any other show, you certainly weren't getting it. No, it was all about cutesy little protests and youth in the streets. We told you that's a game. What you're witnessing in the Middle East is a whole world being flipped on its head. We start tonight in the Middle East, but then we have to go over across the seas. Let's start tonight in Syria, shall we? There is total chaos. Violent protesters burned cars and attacked businesses, burned down government offices and attacked police officers. Snipers reportedly were firing on protesters, killing 2 people. In Jordan, there are fears now of a civil war as violent protests escalate. The latest saw at least 1 protester killed, 120 others injured during bloody clashes with police. In Yemen, it's more of the same. 110 people were killed after thugs tried to steal ammunition from a weapons plant and it blew up. Yemen's president said he'd make no more concessions and warned that his country faces chaos soon and called Yemen, quote, a time bomb. In Bahrain, where much of our supply lines are for our troops, is now under martial law. Protests are banned. Security forces fired tear gas at anti-government protests in the Gulf Kingdom after a prominent Shiite cleric said the demands for the Sunni monarchy to loosen its grip on power will not be silenced by brutal force. In Libya, 1,000 people were killed before the no-fly zone was started. Then the president decided to put a no-fly zone in, but it's one that I've never seen. I've never seen a no-fly zone like this ever before in my life. The president is going on TV tonight to try to explain to America finally what we're doing there. That's just 9 days after the bombs started. I've never seen that before. But almost every day I say to myself, gee, I would have never expected that to happen. I've never seen that before in my life. 9 days? And by the way, it's not war. It's the kinetic military activity. What does that mean exactly? This is how dumb the left believes their own constituency is. Just call it kinetic military activity and they'll be totally cool with it. And you know what? They're right. The left does strangely seem okay with this one, even though Secretary Gates just said this.
Do you think Libya posed an actual or imminent threat to the United States?
No, it was not. It was not a vital national interest to the United States.
Okay, that was the argument that then Senator Obama made, along with the far left, before we went into Iraq. They made us go through how many months saying they're not of vital national interest. Oh, and if the blatant hypocrisy isn't enough to speak out, how about this? Quote, jihadis who fought us in the U.S. in Iraq and Afghanistan now enjoy American support in Libya. Excuse me? That means the people who we were actually shooting at on the battlefield, we're now giving arms to in Libya. This Libyan rebel commander says that his fighters have al-Qaeda links. We'll have much more on this story at the bottom of the hour. So let's see if we have this right. We have a Nobel Peace Prize winning president encouraging unrest in the Middle East, saying, rise up, isn't this great? And look, now people are rising up and people are getting killed everywhere. Then he gave the command to launch America's third military conflict with a Muslim nation that poses no immediate threat, never made the case to the American people, and no exit strategy. And no one is even asking or answering the question, what does victory look like? Chaos. The New York Times is reporting now that the Muslim Brotherhood has now formed a tactic partnership with the Egyptian military. Oh, that seems great. And they're poised to grab control. Oh, what do you say, Sharia law? No. And in Libya, guess who's lining up to grab power there? Oh, the Muslim Brotherhood. But don't worry, according to our administration, the Muslim Brotherhood is completely harmless and secular. The only one that disagrees with it seems to be their spiritual leader.
أتمنى في ختام كلمتي هذا أن يهيئ الله لي في ختام حياتي فرصة للذهاب إلى أرض الجهاد والمقاومة على كرسي متحرك فأطلق رصاصة على أعداء الله اليهود.
Isn't that great? I'm sure he's just a grandfather, though, so when he says he wants to shoot the Jews from his wheelchair, I'm sure he means it in a grandfatherly sort of way. So, the next step. Well, the next step seems to be, let's see, they gather together against Israel, against capitalism, and overturn stability. Oh yeah, here it is. Protests become contagious. They cascade, they sweep the Middle East, and then begin to destabilize Europe. Well, let's see if this has happened. All of the unrest that would spread to Europe and eventually to America. No, that can't happen. That's a crazy conspiracy theory. In Europe this weekend, well, let's take a look what happened. Their biggest, most violent round of protests yet. According to reports, 500,000 people showed up, and while the press tried their best to label the protesters as mostly peaceful, that's amazing. The video reported the anarchists throwing missiles, attacking banks, attacking police, smashing windows. 84 were injured, 31 police officers. And that video kind of says that it's maybe not mostly peaceful. What do you think? Next up is the royal wedding. These same thugs are announcing now that they're planning protests there. And as the government is cutting programs, will there be anything that is more angering to the people than an over-the-top opulent royal wedding? Or at least can be used against the crown. I remember the last time they surrounded Prince Charles and Camilla. They attacked them in their car. Remember this? They surrounded and said, off with their heads, and they meant it. So what's going to happen this time? I don't know. But I have a pretty good idea because I read this book. I've asked you now for 2 years. Please, America, read this book. This is The Coming Insurrection, The Invisible Committee. Many of these people are in jail that wrote this. Some of these people are, I'm guessing, are involved in all of this stuff. The UK protests were led by the trade unions. Ah, really? They gained momentum because they had gotten everybody together. And then they had a new group called UK Uncut, which is great. Because look, just like in our country, unions are in bed with the politicians. And if they can spur something on, wouldn't it be great? Well, here's Here's our president in league with the unions. Now let me show you the Labour Party head in Great Britain, Ed Miliband. He's also standing with the unions in the protests. Watch this.
And I think it's wrong what the government is doing. They are going too far and too fast. There is an alternative, and they should listen. And it's not just me saying it, it's people up and down this country who are saying it too.
Yeah, I don't know if you see all the red flags there in the background. He's in trouble today because things got so violent. The very same attitude and group are coming around now to our shores, which is all spelled out in here. I'll explain that in a second. UK Uncut. I want to stop there. This is a nasty new little group. It's a group that was started by a 22-year-old kid who looks like somebody who would date your daughter and you'd be like totally fine with it. He wants to oppose anyone who, quote, is ripping off this country, end quote. That includes banks or any corporation, really, because they're all alike. Does that sound familiar? Well, I heard that language before in the unions, and quite honestly, from people like Media Matters as well. Unions are planning that here in America. Last week, we released some exclusive audio dug up by my researchers. It's audio of Stephen Lerner. He said unions are dead and community organizers are almost dead too. And as a result, this union organizer, Stephen Lerner, said, we're in a moment where we need to figure out in a direction, in more direct action, more concrete way, how we really are trying to disrupt and create uncertainty for how corporations operate. It's just weird how very anarchist of SEIU. Well, they have some partners in crime now, which may be literal crime. UK Uncut stormed a luxury grocery store with 145 people were arrested. Police said they were intent on rampage. London officials said the group was disorganized and, quote, the only time they showed any enthusiasm was when one of them shouted, "The Bank of America has just been attacked in America," and they all cheered. Losers. The Nation, which is Francis Fox Piven's favorite media outlet, I think, recently did a story here, the UK's left-wing Tea Party, except this one is more violent, seeing that the Tea Parties have never done to any grocery store what these guys did. UK Untouched 10-step guide to becoming, to building a left-wing Tea Party. Here it is. It's a 10-step guide on how to launch a U.S. version of those guys. And guess what? People listened. Now there are U.S. uncut groups popping up in the United States, kind of the anti-9/12 project. Check out the logos. See if you think they're, oh, wow. So they're standing in solidarity with the people of the UK, just like the unions are standing in solidarity with the rioters or the protesters or the revolutionaries in the Middle East. And have you noticed that the targets of protesters here are strangely the same? I mean, on almost everything. The Detroit UAW invaded Bank of America branch, shut it down for half an hour just the other day. It was great. SEIU disrupted a business called a bank. Yeah, in Pennsylvania. SEIU also went to bank executives' homes, and this one trapped a young child in the house and freaked the young boy out. But that's cool to go to people's houses, don't you think? Really? No. We also learned this weekend that Stephen Lerner, the union leader plotting an attack on the stock market, hopes to collapse the U.S. economy, J.P. Morgan Chase, etc., etc. He's still employed at SEIU. This is something we said, I didn't want to go out on a limb because I couldn't believe SEIU hadn't have fired this guy. No. We called them last week, couldn't get an answer. They're not afraid. They don't care. They're taking their mask off. Lerner's leftist friend, Wade Rathke, the guy who runs Acorn, or whatever it is they call it here in the United States, more on that later, confirmed our suspicions on his blog. Quote, Lerner has not been fired by SEIU, as they, meaning me, report. He was placed on paid leave last fall to think through his contribution to the union. Wow, are they wasting money? The economy can't be bad if they're paying him to do that. But he was certainly present at the recent International Executive Board meeting. Why don't we just call the White House and ask what the president knows about him? It's great. But he's just one on the list of people who want to collapse the system. Francis Fox Piven, I know she's knitting and eating her Werther's Originals, but she's also called for protest, just like the violent protest in Greece. And the extreme left are encouraging uprisings here in the same way here in America. Then we have the truly spooky stuff that happened over the weekend. There is new video evidence produced by the Iranian regime that says the current unrest in the Middle East is a sign that the Mahdi, or the Islamic Messiah, is about to appear. They're calling this video "The Coming is Near." By the way, this program maintains that he is the opposite, exact opposite of good and bad in the book of Revelation. But that's not the way Louis Farrakhan sees things, because over the weekend, Louis Farrakhan was also quoting, now he's a Muslim, quoting the book of Revelation. Farrakhan is saying that America now is the great Satan, or saying that it is now full of demons. You and me, watch.
America's not filled with human beings. America's filled with beasts. She has become, as John the Revelator said, the habitation of devils.
Okay, so what happens when you can convince enough people, or at least one people, oh, what do you say, 18 people, that America is full of nothing but beasts? Remember, anybody who mentions Jesus is dangerous. But listen to Farrakhan, calling Americans demons. I don't know how many were here, but a couple of weeks ago it was in front of 18,000 people. And here he is quoting scripture. Then you have the new Black Panther leader this weekend, Malik Shabazz, saying this.
You have fallen into this trap, Barack Obama, and you should have listened to Louis Farrakhan a long time ago when you were at his table. But you want to follow the white man, and the white man's time is up.
I'm sure the DOJ is not going to investigate that one. And I'm sure nobody on television is going to talk about violent, vitriolic rhetoric. No. So let's see what we have here. We have uprisings in the Middle East. We have trade unions and anarchists and uprisings in Europe. We have anarchists and unions here at home. And wait a minute, gosh, this is starting to sound familiar, isn't it? Then you have the truly evil here and abroad. But let's not forget the old run-of-the-mill Communist Party. Here this weekend was the vice chair of the Communist Party here in America, Scott Marshall. He was talking about Wisconsin, and he said this.
I have to tell you that in every one of the situations that I've been in Madison and in Indianapolis, there is a radicalization going on among legislators, Democratic legislators, that I've never seen in my lifetime, and I don't think any of us have.
There is something going on. And we have to stop here with the good old-fashioned politician. The good old-fashioned politician went in on the fun as well. This is a United States Senator speaking in front of a group on Friday.
Tea Party Republicans in Washington claim they're concerned about the budget balance. But it's a disguise. It's not true. It's a lie. That's what they want. They want other people not to be able to have their own opinion. They don't deserve the freedoms that are in the Constitution.
I don't think we can convince any more people. I think it's okay. And how the story ends. I think we need to just shore ourselves up and clean out our lives and be decent to each other. Keep telling the truth. I mean, because doesn't all this look like this theory? All of it. And beyond. Oh, a couple of other things. Acorn has just landed overseas. Egypt, Prague, South Korea. In Prague, Acorn has dubbed the branch Acorn's Comrade Club. Oh, that really? When news of Acorn going global, Wade Rathke came out and said this over the weekend. Glenn Beck may have simply been just ahead of his time. No, Wade. No, I just take people at their word. I just listen to people. I don't have an agenda. I just look for the truth. Oh, and also I happen to be a recovering alcoholic and dirtbag. So when alcoholics come up to me like, I haven't had a drink, and you know what, I really got to try. You're like, no. Same with dirtbags. I take their words seriously, and I know when they're bluffing. and when they're telling the truth. Ahead of my time? No, I just wish I was a little farther ahead. You would think that the ones on the left would explain to the enemies of man's freedom around the globe that the guys who wear white hats always win in the end. But then I remember that the people in Hollywood, you know, they make all the movies, the leftists, they don't know that. In fact, they've been spending a lot of time trying to explain to people that people don't even wear white hats anymore. There's nobody. Everybody wears a black hat. No, not true. There's more and more Americans every day making sure their white hat fits.